Chapter 15. A New World in Conflict. War against the Colonies. King Philip's War. While the kings of Europe fought and schemed to make their kingdoms larger, the English colonies in North America were growing larger all on their own. More and more men and women were making the long journey across the Atlantic Ocean. New settlements spread across Massachusetts, over into the land we now call Rhode Island and Connecticut. New settlers built more houses, cleared more fields, and chopped down more trees. They needed more space, and so they kept moving further west and further into Native American lands, until the Wampanoag tribe decided to fight back. At first, the Wampanoag and the English had been friends. When the English settlers first came to Massachusetts, the Wampanoag showed them how to fish, how to trap game, and how to survive the harsh northern winters. But as the Massachusetts colony grew larger, the colonists no longer needed the Wampanoag. They grew their own crops and traded their own goods to European merchant ships in exchange for the salt, weapons, and seeds that they needed. And they forced the Wampanoag to give them more land for their growing town. The king of the Wampanoag tribe, Metacom, saw that his kingdom was vanishing. When his people went to fish in their favorite streams, the banks were crowded with colonists. When they walked in their hunting grounds, English hunters lurked behind trees, waiting for deer. "I am resolved," Metacom announced to a friend, "that I will not see the day when I have no kingdom." One cold January morning, a young Wampanoag man left his tiny village and hurried down the icy dirt road toward Plymouth Bay. He had grown up in Metacom's kingdom, but in his teens he had gone to the new little college built by the English to train Christian ministers. At this little college, which the English called Harvard, the Wampanoag boy had been given the English name John Sassamon. John Sassamon knew Metacom well. Because John could read and write in English, Metacom had often asked him to carry messages to the English leaders, but now John Sassamon carried a warning. John walked for hours, shivering in the gray winter air. His feet grew numb with cold. Finally, the tall wooden walls of the Plymouth fortress came into view. John Sassamon hurried through the gates. "Where is the governor?" he asked. "I must speak to him right away." The governor of Plymouth, Josiah Winslow, was busy with paperwork, but John Sassamon waited, anxiously glancing back at Plymouth's strong walls. When he was finally brought into the governor's office, he spoke so quickly that Winslow could barely understand him. "King Metacom is raising an army," he blurted out. "He's asking every other tribe to join with him to fight against you. He plans to drive the English back to their home. I've come to warn you. But please, please don't send me back. He doesn't know I'm here, and if the warriors find out that I've warned you, they'll kill me." Winslow sighed. Like many English, he thought that the Wampanoag were stupid and not to be trusted. "You can hardly believe an Indian," he remarked to a friend, "even when they tell the truth." He turned to John Sassamon. "Go back home," he said. "Plymouth Plantation is safe." Sassamon pleaded to stay, but Winslow refused. When Sassamon left the fortress, his eyes were filled with tears. A week later, John Sassamon disappeared. His body was found, frozen into the ice of a pond. His neck was broken. When two men came forward, claiming that they had seen 3 Wampanoag warriors kill Sassamon and throw him into the pond, the English decided to show Metacom who was really in charge of Massachusetts. English soldiers arrested the warriors and brought them to Plymouth. The Wampanoag warriors were tried, convicted of murder, and executed. Metacom was furious. How dare the English invade his village and drag away his warriors? 3 days after the execution, Metacom and his men attacked a little Plymouth settlement, burning houses and driving the settlers away. War had begun. The war between the English and the Wampanoag dragged on for months. The colonists had more guns, but the Native Americans were better at surprise attacks and ambushes, and Metacom convinced other Native American tribes nearby to join with him in his war against the English. Native American warriors burned English settlements, killed English colonists, and took others captive, only releasing them in exchange for money and weapons. One of these captured women, Mary Rowlandson, wrote about the attack on her house. "It was the dolefullest day that ever mine eyes saw," she lamented. "From all places the Indians shot against the house, so that the bullets seemed to fly like hail. Some in our house were fighting for their lives, others wallowing in their own blood, the house on fire over our heads. Then I took my children to go forth and leave the house, but as soon as we came to the door and appeared, the Indians shot so thick that the bullets rattled against the house, as if one had taken a handful of stones and threw them. Mary and her children were captured and held prisoner for weeks until her husband paid money for her release. After 8 months of war, 1,300 Englishmen from Plymouth banded together to make the strongest attack yet against Metacom's forces. Metacom and his warriors had joined together with another tribe, the Narragansett, and were camped out in the middle of a treacherous swamp. The Englishmen sloshed through the swamp and attacked Metacom's camp. The battle, which became known as the Great Swamp Fight, almost wiped out the Native American warriors. Metacom himself fled west into the colony of New York and tried to convince the Mohawk tribe to give him fresh warriors and weapons. When the Mohawks refused, Metacom tried to keep on fighting with his remaining men. But his shrinking war band could not resist forever. 8 months after the Great Swamp Fight, English soldiers surrounded Metacom's camp. Metacom escaped, but his wife and 9-year-old son were captured and sold as slaves to South America. Metacom evaded the English for 10 more days, but was surrounded in the middle of a swamp, unable to get away. A Native American warrior who had joined the English forces shot Metacom. The English then cut off his head, paraded back to Plymouth in triumph, and put Metacom's head up on a pole in the middle of the settlement, where it remained for years. Because the English called Metacom King Philip, this war became known as King Philip's War. 12 English towns had been burned to the ground,